ahead and do the HR committee. This is our committee meetings. Mr. Werman is chairman of the HR committee. Mr. Werman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, yes, this is the Human Resources Committee. I sit as chair, Councilman Boykin, Councilwoman Honeycutt, Councilman Pryor, and then, of course, Chairman Sass are members of the committee. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of February 8th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The minutes are approved. The second item on our agenda is a clarification of the parental leave policy. For folks, maybe I'll just introduce this briefly. For folks who have taken a look at it, this is really to clarify, what I think in fairness was sort of the understanding of council. There was some language in there that didn't make it super clear that, the child had to be born or adopted after the 12-month sort of vesting period, I think we described it. So it leads to some situations where, maybe it's a week before or 2 weeks before, and, it just, listen, we've thought about this long and hard, and particularly, it's just not, there has to be a firm date for it to function, in my view. I guess I'm treading into my opinion here, but in any event, that's the item on the floor. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Werman. I'm not on the committee, but I guess my question is what, I thought it was, in my opinion, was pretty clear. Has there been instances where someone has tried to not follow the rules, or what?
Well,
Any reason why this is?
I think it has come up, and so, I think, I don't know if anyone from staff would like to address it, but I think it has come up. I don't think that anyone has tried to not follow the rules, but I think there's maybe been disagreements. Ms. Holden, would you like to address that?
Thank you, Mr. Werman. I appreciate it.
I will. Thank you very much. So we too believe that the language was clear, and we thought we were following what you had said, but we've had questions on it, and the questions were, if the child was born previous to my 1-year anniversary, can I sometime after my first anniversary still get the benefit? And we just wanted to make sure that we had clarified that we were answering that question the way that you intended, which was 1 year and then qualifying event, and then after that, the benefit is available to you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Okay, do I hear a motion?
Oh, you already did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The vote, call for the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the clarification passes.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Werman.
think we've got a special council meeting after this that will address this as well, so.
We're going to move right into that special county council meeting agenda right now. Madam Clerk, Freedom of Information Act.
In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of meeting was posted and agendas were distributed to news media and persons requesting notification.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman.
Item number 2.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Pryor, seconded by Ms. Honeycutt. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. This special county council agenda is over. We now go to planning and public works. Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Mr. Sass. First order of business.
Approval. Second.
Mr. Pryor, Mr. Middleton. Any changes, additions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 2.
Move for approval. Second.
Mr. Pryor, Mr. Middleton, moved and seconded. Any questions of Mr. Thigpen or other staff? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Sass, back to you.
Great committee meeting. Next item is the Finance Committee
Approve.
agenda. Approval of the minutes moved by Reverend Middleton and seconded by Mr. Pryor. Any questions, deletions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We're going to skip down to the consent agenda.
Move to
Before we-
approve 3A, B, and C. Second.
Moved by Reverend Middleton, seconded by Mr.
Question.
Boykin.
Question
Yes, sir.
on 3C, is that enough funding, Mr. Moody, what you're requesting?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for asking. That's plenty, and I appreciate that. This school keeps dominating, so they keep having to.
Oh, I know.
But you know, the thing I like about it, if you'll just indulge me, is that we have, I guess, 3 or 4 or 5 of our associates, county associates, have children on or affiliated with this team or coaches on this team. And Mr. Pryor, I know your grandchildren have all gone to school there too. So it's if we're going to invest our money, I think we ought to do it at things that impact our associates. So I appreciate this council's support.
Thank you. I will.
And no further, oh, Mr. Kowalski, do you have a
I
question?
just want to congratulate the team, and it states me I was on the Charleston County School Board when we created the school, so it's good to see the great success that was happening. I think Mr. Moody's brother was on the school board at the time as well. So congratulations. It's an honor to see such success and such great students and great things that you do there all these years later, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kowalski. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next item is 2A, Climate Action Plan presentation.
We can hear anything? Can we, I'm sorry, I know I'm out of order, sir. I mean, it'd be nice if it's permissible, sir. I mean, just to have a little something for them to say. Is that permissible, sir?
Absolutely.
Coach?
Would you like to come up to the microphone and tell us what the program is? Houston. It's in Houston. You got him in trouble there. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better still. Go right here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so we are part of the First Tech Challenge League. Within that, we are building robots, and we also work through the engineering design process to build innovative designs in order to solve each season's challenges. This season, we were tasked with picking up hexagonal pixels and placing them at inclines while traveling also underneath horizontal bars. A big part of the mission is not only to build robotics and build students in STEM, but also to teach soft skills, as we have to learn presentation skills and also how to communicate with lots of different levels.
Somebody explain that to me later.
Oh, my gosh, come on, man, no.
Keep going?
Wow. Keep going.
I don't think it goes down all the way.
Grab it, Mr. Smalls. Grab it, boy.
Wow, yeah.
Wild looking thing, man.
Yeah, they're good with that. They went up last year and they won first place too.
Internship program, Mr. Tootin.
Wow, great job. Great
Hey,
job.
Bourne design got them wrapped up, Moody.
Great. Next item is the presentation for the Climate Action Plan.
Okay, well, that is hard to follow, but so yeah, thanks everyone. I am going to turn it over to Stuart Weinberg, who's the chairman of our Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee. He is just going to give a quick intro on some of the work we've been doing, and then he's going to turn it over to Yul, our consultant, for the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Ariel. It's really an honor to be here as chair of the Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee, and we actually have one council member who's on that committee and has been extremely resourceful. I'm also the vice chair of the city's Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee that helped create the city's climate action plan. And I'm also serving as a member of the various state committees which just submitted their preliminary climate action plan to EPA last week. So just some opening comments. We're all experiencing greater heat, and probably greater heat at night, which is having a major effect, even more than the heat during the day. We're all seeing heavier and more severe rain. We're seeing sea level rise, which is creating even more flooding. We're seeing tropical storms that become hurricanes almost instantaneously because of the warmer ocean temperatures. And in certain areas in Charleston County, we're seeing rising air pollution, which really is affecting children in low areas with asthma, etc. In addition, as a committee, we felt we must address equity and how do we assist those living in conditions more affected by climate changes because they do not have the money to make any necessary changes. We also considered seniors over 65, the risk from flooding and vulnerability to heat. We all know that greenhouse gases play a significant role in changing our climate. And whether or not you agree with the science or not, the Charleston Climate Action Plan will, and I'm quoting from the report, will accelerate the transition to a clean energy economy while simultaneously achieving multiple health, equity, economic, and reliance benefits. This is economic development for all, and for all taxpayers will see the results in significant savings. The county will also see these significant savings. The Climate Action Plan will advance social equity, protect low-income residents, improve affordability, particularly for vulnerable populations, enhance and strengthen the local economy, maintain, create good quality local jobs, improve public health, contribute to poverty reduction, and create resilient communities and infrastructure. So I look forward as the chair to the discussions and the approvals which will make this climate action plan real. Finally, people continually ask me, why do I do this? One reason, I have 3 grandchildren. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to give you an overview of the draft climate action plan. It is a draft, and so there will be a period of a month for public comment and also opportunity for all of you to provide your insights and additional thoughts. And it's very exciting. This has been a long journey in preparing this climate action plan. It's a very detailed and long document for those of you who've had a chance to look through it, and covers many different aspects. So today I'm going to go through the process that we went through to develop the climate action plan, the engagement undertaking, the modeling results, and the implementation strategy, so how we thought that this climate action plan could manifest itself, and then recommendations and next steps. So I work with Sustainability Solutions Group. We're a workers' cooperative. We have about 40 employees. We've been engaged in this work for over 20 years and have worked on around 100 climate action plans for jurisdictions very small to very large, from cities to regions to counties to states. And Charleston County has been a very exciting jurisdiction with which to work. So what does a climate action plan do? It demonstrates leadership in the challenge to reduce climate pollution or greenhouse gas emissions. It outlines detailed actions to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. It identifies the associated economic opportunities. And this is a new dimension of climate action planning that really reflects a lot of the economic transition that is underway around the world. It also ensures an equitable transition for all community members. So you'll see that there's actually 4 documents. There's the long, detailed document that is filled with charts and analysis on the finances and energy and emissions. And for those of you who want a detailed dive, you can go into that. There's a summary, executive summary, that's a shorter document that provides a good overview, which is around 8 to 12 pages. Then there's an overview of the actions, and then there's an FAQ. And so you can start with the FAQ and go deeper as you would like to understand more and more of the analysis. This is a very unique moment in time. The federal government is providing the largest ever investment in climate action in the U.S. history through the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA, $783 billion. Also many elements of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is over $1 trillion. So those 2 combined funding sources mean that there is a lot of money available to support many of the actions that we've identified in this plan. There's also a lot happening in the state. As Stuart mentioned, the Priority Climate Action Plan was just completed on March 1st. The state is now embarking on a comprehensive climate action plan, which will be done in about a year. A number of other jurisdictions within the state are also working on or have passed climate action plans. There's a number of other initiatives underway, including a loan program for commercial buildings, a home energy score program that's being developed, and then there's a growth in wind and EV manufacturing industries, a hub of economic activity around those within the state. So those are some of the pieces that are underway in the state. There's actually a lot going on. The process that was used to develop the Climate Action Plan resembles many planning processes that you would see for development of a city plan or any other real planning activity, except we also used what's called a systems dynamics model to build this computer model of Charleston County and where all the dwellings are located and how people move from dwelling to work and what energy each dwelling or building consumes, where that energy comes from, the type of furnace in the buildings. So we built this model that represents the current conditions, and then we built future scenarios. What would happen if nothing else changes? What would happen if we do X, Y, and Z actions? And that technical analysis underpinned the plan that you see before you. It was also refined and developed in consultation through the engagement process. The engagement process had three different aspects: an inform aspect, a consult aspect, and an involve aspect. Through inform, we did regular project updates, council presentations, public town hall and webinars, newsletter articles. Through the consult, we did community outreach activities, and involve, in particular, was with the two advisory committees, the Resilience and Sustainability Advisory Committee and the Staff Expert and Climate Advisory Team, RSEC and CCAC for short. So here's a quick summary of the extent of the engagement: 8 pre-engagement interviews, 7 meetings of the two committees, 7 public meetings, 9 outreach events, and 365 questionnaire respondents. And these are the two committees. You can see a large diversity of participants in both these committees, and it was an extensive process, and I'd really like to acknowledge the contribution of these committees to this process, because they provided a lot of insight and a lot of refining of the plan as you see it before you. So the challenge. So here's the starting point for Charleston County: 6.4 million tons of emissions. The state's emissions are 74 million tons, so almost a tenth of the emissions are from Charleston County. The major source are from buildings. We've bundled them or split them out there: commercial, industrial, and residential buildings, about 3 million tons. Transportation, 2.8 million tons. And then the rest of the sources are much smaller. So one of the scenarios we looked at is what would happen if we didn't do anything else. That's the orange line there. Emissions more or less stabilize around 6 million tons. And I can talk about the dynamics of that later if we want to. The pathway that we modeled, all the actions, is a steady, slow decline, which almost goes to zero, but not quite by 2050. And you can see that's incremental, step by step, out towards 2050. Not everything happens at once. It's a gradual progression. And it's about a 94% reduction in emissions by 2050. And so we've done that within this model where we're retrofitting homes and adding different energy systems and adjusting the vehicle stock. So it's really very much an evidence-based pathway. So the opportunities. This is actually another vision of the graph that I just showed you. The top line is the business as usual scenario, and the bottom line is the low carbon scenario. And then each of those colored wedges are bundles of actions, which we've called big moves. The first one is around buildings, affordable and resilient buildings. The second one is transportation. Third one is energy, clean energy for all. The fourth one is industrial and agricultural sectors, which is important in Charleston County. And the last one is the circular economy. So what's the impact of all of those actions? So in 2024, households and businesses spent $1.7 billion on energy, which is a big number. But if you then multiply that by 5 over 5 years, it's 8.5 billion. And if you multiply it over 10 years, it's 17 billion. So you can see how much money is spent on energy year over year. And there's a lot of opportunity for savings that we discovered within that expenditure. It's not too big of a lift to cut that in half. How would you do that? So we modeled all of that in detail to look at the capital costs and the savings that result. This is, again, back to that low carbon scenario. It's about $500 million a year in investment, which seems like a big number, but it's actually less than 1% of Charleston County's GDP. So it's not a huge investment overall, and a lot of it is happening naturally. As people buy electric vehicles or do retrofits on their homes or purchase heat pumps, all of those investments contribute to that overall number. That number stimulates all sorts of reductions, and you can see those reductions in the yellow bars. Those are energy savings. There's also some revenues that kick in from solar, and then there's also some operations and maintenance savings. So what do those numbers actually come from? So if you buy a heat pump, it's 3 times as efficient as a natural gas furnace or an electric furnace. So right there, you go from 1 unit of energy that you're paying for to 1/3 as many units of energy that you're paying for. So that's one. If you buy an electric vehicle, it's 1/3 as efficient, or uses 1/3 as much energy as a gasoline car. So you go from buying 1 unit to 1/3. So all of those are the efficiencies that drive those cost savings. And there's many other examples that I might give later on. So the real opportunity of this moment is that from the Inflation Reduction Act, there is about $150 million per year that can be leveraged to support these investments. So if you take the average, say a household of $80,000 a year income, 4 people in that household, they're eligible right now for about $24,000 of incentives and grants that will help pay for the heat pump and the electric vehicle and the electrical upgrade. All of those incentives are available through the Inflation Reduction Act. So a key role for the county is to stimulate and support those investments and make sure people are aware that they can actually access them. And that will also help drive down costs as it becomes a more standard part of the economy. What does this do to household energy incomes? The average expenditure per household in Charleston County in 2020 was $5,200 per year. By 2050, under the low carbon scenario, it goes down to $3,900. So this is really a win-win scenario, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, stimulating new investment, and reducing household energy costs, all in the same effort. It also will stimulate all of those investments, that $500 million or so per year, would stimulate up to 3,400 new jobs per year. So every time a building is retrofit or a solar system is purchased or an electric vehicle is purchased, that stimulates these new employment opportunities. Equity was a key theme. We heard that from many sources, and it's increasingly standard within all climate action planning processes across the U.S. The way we thought about equity is we looked spatially at low-income and disadvantaged communities, and we looked at a number of different indicators for those communities. 2 examples are on the screen. Those houses which are exposed to lead paint and those with a higher prevalence of asthma. So lead paint can be dealt with through retrofits. Asthma is about reducing exposure to air pollutants, which happens when you electrify transportation because gas cars and diesel cars emit the particles that cause asthma, as well as combusting natural gas in your home through a natural gas cooktop or oven. So those pieces all contribute to asthma. So these actions would significantly reduce those reductions or those impacts. We also looked at a number of other benefits. Reducing household energy costs reduces the energy burden, and energy burden is when households are forced to choose between paying the utility bill and buying food, as an example. We also looked at opportunities to reduce indoor air quality. So if you have less combustion in your household envelope, you have less exposure to indoor air quality. Increasing travel options to make traveling more accessible. Driving is probably the most expensive cost for a household of all the travel options, from transit to walking and cycling. So increasing those options. Reducing exposure outdoor air pollution, which is really about combustion within vehicles. And then stimulating new jobs and business opportunities across the county. So those are all co-benefits that come along with reducing emissions. Finally, how do you make all this happen? We mapped it out in the 5 big moves, which I showed you. There are 11 strategies that align with those 5 big moves and 53 actions. And here's the summary of the strategies. None of these are mandates. These are all ways that the county can stimulate, support, and incentivize these investments. So I think that's an important point in terms of the framing of the way we develop the Climate Action Plan. So here's the timeline. We're sharing the draft report with you now. There's a period of public comment and also an opportunity for you to provide your comments and thoughts in order to prepare a final plan for hopefully your consideration in early April or slightly thereafter. And that is everything I have to share for now.
Great. Are there any comments or questions? I know we will have a period of time to, how long is, the comment period is for 30 days? Is that correct?
Yeah, the public comment period is 30 days. No?
Well, I think we're. Yeah, I think we're still determining exactly how long we want the public comment period to be based on the amount of time that you all need, and for public comments to jive together, basically. I believe there's only one meeting, we were potentially looking to come back at the April 9th meeting, but then I believe there's only one meeting after that in May. So we'd be looking potentially at a meeting in May if we don't do the April 9th meeting, so.
So we should be getting our comments and questions together
Sooner than later.
Yeah, for them to be because we want to incorporate all the feedback into the plan so you can see it before we come back to the final meeting.
Great,
Yes,
thank you.
yeah.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, thank you so. oh,
Yes, sir. Mr. Reverend Middleton was first. Sorry.
No, I'll yield.
Well, it's just 2 points. Number one, what about sustainability? And number two, where are we in terms of solar?
In terms of sustainability, do you mean like economic, social, and economic?
Yes, sir, the
sustainability?
continuation thereof, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I think that lens is really the overarching lens through which the Climate Action Plan is developed. It's considering the social dynamics, the economic elements, and the environmental aspects. So that's really the framework, I think, that underpins the Climate Action Plan. Does that make sense to you?
It does, sir. Well, as a AB, what safeguards do you have that deal with various demographics in terms of the equity question? What safeguards are in place?
So I think the intention with the implementation elements is to, well, actually, when you go through the report, you'll see there's an equity label for a number of the actions to really map out which ones could have significant equity outcomes. And then there's also an intention to target the tracks. They're basically tracks that we identified that were identified as low-income disadvantaged communities. So implementation there first before other areas in order to really make sure those benefits go to where they deliver the most outcome.
When I say equity, I'm not talking about the racial equity. I'm talking basically the affluent versus the poor.
Yeah.
But that's the type of equity I'm talking about, sir.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
And my final question, what role is solar going to play within this plan?
So solar, so the vision for the end, so basically the key element is electrify a lot of stuff and do that with a lot of efficiency. And if you want that to decarbonize, you need to make that electricity clean. And so there's a number of options in terms of how you make that electricity clean. Solar is definitely a key technology. There's also nuclear, which is already a significant industry within South Carolina. And then there's also hydro, and there's also wind and offshore wind. And I think North Carolina has already got the first offshore wind project commissioned. So there's multiple dimensions, but solar is a really accessible, critical technology in the mix. And that IRA funding I mentioned, the average solar system on a household is about 5 kilowatts, which costs in Charleston right now around $13,000. IRA will give you 1/3 of that off, so that solar system will cost just over $9,000, and it'll pay back in 6 years, and over 10 years, or over 20 years, it'll save $39,000. So it's a very compelling investment for a lot of households. But you really need to stimulate that and let people know that that opportunity exists.
Thank you, sir.
So we've embedded that within the plan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Reverend Middleton?
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I would just like to thank our consultant and staff for a wonderful presentation. I certainly wish that we would see this back in April as opposed to May. based on the timeline so that they could, in a robust way, stimulate community engagement, and we can get our thoughts into them so that could be incorporated. I think it's time enough to do that. So again, I just wanted to express that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Great presentation. Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you. I think this ends our meeting for today. Thank you all very much. Bill.
Christine will come back and see you later.